I was debating on not doing this for a few reasons, because a lot of the information upon recording this is yet to be released. But a lot of this needs to be said, and I'm just going to say it. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But I'm going to be as fair and honest as I can. Okay? Talking about the shooting in Jacksonville at the men tournament. Okay? Whew! It has been a crazy 24 hours. So I'm going to go through it as fast as I can, and we'll just kind of do a sum up toward the end, okay? So, Sunday afternoon, on August 26th, there was a shooting during a Madden football video game tournament in which a Baltimore man by the name of David Katz lost his game. And I don't know if there was banter, but given the fact that some videos I've seen post this incident have come up where allegedly he's trash talking other people, chances are somebody probably gave it right back to him, because this guy, to me, sounds like he's the kind of trash talker who can dish it out but can't take it. He got upset, he pulled out a gun, and then he opened fire on the people in that tournament, killing 2 and then taking his own life, bringing the number up to 3. The Jacksonville police showed up, and they pretty much closed down the entire area and were checking to see if there was a second shooter, trying to get as much information as humanly possible. And at that time, they were very non-descriptive on detail because, it had just happened, and there's it takes a lot of investigation to unearth motive and the like, especially if this guy was from out of town, because there was a lot of information they had gaps on. And it wasn't until the media got a hold of it. And this is where I'm getting really pissed off. And I mean really pissed off. We can't, as a people, properly deal with tragedies like this, because we need to stop pretending that we live in this perfect world where nothing bad can possibly happen. Unfortunately, evil exists in this world, and things like this are going to happen. The best thing we can do is better prepare ourselves for next time, is to better educate ourselves for next time. We may have different ideas as to how to do this, but I think we could both agree that if we could better prepare ourselves for any kind of event or situation like this, I think a responsible measure should be taken. What I don't think is proper responsibility are when several news reporting websites take matters into their own hands and they automatically made claims about this guy, for some reason they had to point out that he was Jewish, which to me made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And then a political activist, Tariq Nasheed, I believe his last name is, he decided to make this a giant racial issue by claiming that he opened fire on a black man first. This was premeditated. He is a white identified extremist, which to me made absolutely no sense. There was nothing to indicate that this was racially charged. And if the dude is racist, I'm sure that'll come out in due time. But as of right now, let's be honest here. This is Madden football. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say black people play Madden football. Same with white people, same with Hispanic people, same with Asian people. I have seen people of all gender and of all race playing Madden. Madden is a pretty wide reach on almost everyone. So, in Jacksonville, Florida, I'm not too surprised to, let's not assume that this is like, oh, he singled him out. No, I'm gonna bet that there was a good amount of different races represented here, so that claim is pretty ridiculous in of itself, since there was no accuracy claim to it whatsoever. Given that this guy he's been in the e-game scene for a while, being a former Madden champion, I guess. So something like that would have popped up immediately, and of course he got shot down for it, and it was ridiculous. But of course that didn't stop the media and journalists from reaching out on Twitter to people involved, their families of supposed victims, telling them, oh, direct message me to let me know what's going on so we can get the truth out there. So they're going as far as into invading the privacy of these families, of people involved and supposed families of the victims, and then going one step further and then claiming identity of people who have been murdered at the shooting, being 100% wrong. How would you feel? How do you think your mother would feel if she were to have gotten on Twitter knowing that you were at that tournament and found out that her son's name had gotten tagged in that post, and then she's trying to frequently call him and trying to figure out what's going on? Chances are, he's probably busy answering questions from the police, or maybe he one of the I think 10-ish people who got injured and was at the hospital. Imagine being that parent and seeing that your child was falsely identified as a murder victim at a shooting. Imagine having to go in crisis mode from that. I would have lost my mind. So we have people who have been on countless news channels, CNN, Fox, the like, making their racial claims, putting their stamp of approval on it, because, we have to find a reason right off the bat, rather than getting the information, grieving the lives lost, and then we move on. We can't do that anymore. No. We have to be activists about it, because we're only activists when tragedy happens. Just like these people, the NFL players who are kneeling because of police brutality. I don't remember a single thing being said during the off season, because last I checked, activism is 365 all year round. Not when it's most convenient for you, and not when there is a camera in their face. That's why I have such a problem with issues like this. Whether you're for gun control, against gun control, you're against feminism, you're against toxic masculinity, it doesn't matter. We can't process anything anymore without somebody having to take a stand and making it about a different issue, rather than this is a tragedy and we need to process it and deal with it. We need to respect the families. We need to respect the venue, and then we can move on as respectable human beings. No, not even. We have people immediately criticizing the President of the United States because apparently he didn't respond fast enough. Even though I don't know the guy's schedule. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I'm not going to sit here and judge him, and honestly, considering how none of you know what the President's schedule looks like, I don't think you should either. At least not right now. The president's daughter goes on Twitter trying to offer her condolences and immediately gets bombarded. You tell me right now that if people had acted like this during a tragedy with the previous administration in office, if one of Obama's daughters had gone on Twitter, thoughts and prayers with the family, and people were responding the way that they had done to Ivanka Trump, I guarantee you would see people going after those haters with torches and pitchforks. Because people love to praise the last presidency for progress, even though you could argue very little progress actually got done. But I don't want to make this about politics. I'm talking about respect. People had respect for an administration who, in my opinion, had many controversies, had many issues, and had much inaction. And then you got people who just hate the last president because he's a dumbass who speaks his mind way too much, worries too much about what he's putting on Twitter, and his rhetoric is what gets him into trouble. That's the problem. Between someone who, in my opinion, is counteractively working how the country works and somebody who's just an out-front dumbass, it's still the president. So, we now have a position of power that no one appreciates or respects, but then we gotta insult the family who are basically just trying to do some kind of damage control because the media is flat out lying. Because at one point, I'm pretty sure it was CNN or MSNBC, when we're playing the audio of the shooting, they said the guy had a rifle. Factoid. If you thought that was a rifle, you're wrong. And they immediately pulled that report as soon as Jacksonville PD got in front of a camera the second time that day and said it was a handgun that had a laser sight attached to it. So, no, it's not a rifle. Because, again, media's got to push that narrative. See, right off the bat, they were ready to push that anti-whatever rifle agenda because they want gun control. So, just to kind of throw this out there, anyone who thinks that the government and the media are not firmly anti-guns, just remember two very important things. They're the first people to automatically blame a type of weapon when they hear the news of a shooting before actually getting the facts. And the only major cases that have ever been brought forth before the Supreme Court in favor of more gun control was Heller versus D.C., in which the argument was that private citizens have no right to bear arms whatsoever. Now, thankfully, that never passed. That was never brought through. So for anyone saying, oh, they're trying to outright ban guns, they are. And I'm going to stop here and I'm going to say if you're a left-leaning political person, I'm not saying that's what you're suggesting. I'm not. I'm saying that there are politicians and news sources and journalists and media and just some media sources, if I haven't already said it, I feel like I've repeated myself, who that's what they want. That's what they push. I've seen the videos of people out in the streets. They don't want guns, period. And chances are they've never held a gun in their life. But again, that's neither here nor there. So right off the bat, we got people assuming racial motive. People assuming that it has something to do with toxic masculinity because he overreacted because he lost at a game. And then my favorite one, people assuming it has to do with violent video games. Look, no surprise, if you follow my channel, you know I play Dead by Daylight, where you either play as a survivor or you play as a killer. I'm going to tell you something right now. I have played every Gears of War known to man, almost every Call of Duty known to man. I've played multiple horror-related games, RPGs, action adventures, running gunners. I have not once felt the urge to get a gun and go kill somebody. So, based on that and the numerous scientific studies they have done, that proves that that does not incite violence. The violence comes from people with undiagnosed mental illness that when they play games, they can't differentiate fact from fiction. They can't properly, I apologize if I'm not getting my terms here correctly, they dissociate what's going on. Misplaced anger, serious depression issues, stuff like that. There's a contributing factor that's making how they feel when it comes to these games worse. And people like to blame video games, and even the Trump administration at one point was trying to push it, and it failed terribly. It's always something. And these people have yet, and the two victims, they said 3 or 4. Originally it was 4, then they said 3, including the shooter. So the two people that have been shot, they haven't even been properly identified yet. And already we got the activists who are against toxic masculinity. We got people out there who are shouting off against extreme white extremists. We got people out there who are already complaining about more gun control. And yet we can't get victims' names done correctly by the media. We can't get a proper identification of what the tool that was used the weapon, I should say in this case. The weapon used in this situation that caused all this to begin with. A backlash against administration who's trying to do damage control because apparently nothing is ever good enough. And we're now gotten to the point where people can't even have a rational discussion about this now without labels being thrown out. And this is where I'm drawing the line. Okay? This is where I'm drawing the line. If you want a refresher on firearms, I'll give it to you really fast. Okay? Dude is from Baltimore, went to Florida. Florida and Baltimore, Maryland, they do not have the same gun laws. That's all you need to know. They haven't specified if it was legal or not. They haven't specified if he met the requirements for traveling across lines while having a gun on him, period, because you have to have licensing in order to carry it across state lines. Here's my next question, brought up by a YouTuber I watched by the name of Brandon Tatum. How come there was no security at this event? A video game championship? Clearly a decent size one. I don't know if they've released the numbers of people who attended. Please explain to me why there was no security at this event. No private security, no on or off-duty police officers. Please explain to me why there was nobody there. See, that's a solution that no one likes. Oh, we don't like the guys with the scary guns. Really, those guys with the scary guns are making sure that the people who you don't know have a gun on them, who might do something crazy, they're going to keep them in check. Because chances are those scary people with the AR-15s or the Glocks in their holster, chances are they're going to be able to put that guy down a lot faster than he can probably get his gun out and ready to go. And if you're anti-gun, I get it. I understand it. You're not comfortable around them. I understand that. But you can't take your own personal fear and make it everyone else's problem. Because while that happened, there were millions of legal gun owners yesterday that didn't go out and commit crimes. You won't hear about the story about the woman who pulled out her sidearm on a would-be rapist or assaulter. You didn't hear about the story about how the father pulled out his .223 and thwarted a burglar who was in their home. You didn't hear about those stories. So my middle ground is this. I think when it comes to the FBI, when it comes to the police, when it comes to any state office in charge of weapons and making sure that the proper registry, I feel like they should be taking their job a hell of a lot more seriously. Just like with the Parkland shooter, if they would have responded and put him on a threat list, he would not have been able to go and get a rifle. I promise you that. Okay? And for those of you who are saying, oh, he traveled to their state and he can get a gun, there's two ways he can do that. He can either do it illegally, or he would have to travel to a dealer with an FFL and then would then have to go with the corresponding state actual gun laws, which chances are doesn't necessarily work like that. It's not as easy as you think. So I'm just throwing it out there. But I am recommending that we definitely need to buckle up on how police and FBI handle situations where people are being reported for suspicious activity. And I'll even go as far as saying when it comes to emails or social media, Twitter, school servers, stuff like that. Things like that need to be followed up on. Okay? And I do think that the people who do suffer from severe emotional distress or some kind of disorder where you cannot properly differentiate emotions, then it would not be in your best interest to maybe have a firearm, at least until you're medically cleared. I'm not suggesting that we determine what is acceptable under like mental illness and whether or not to own a gun, because that's when we start worrying about people with different viewpoints being able to decline people, yes or no. There's a difference between somebody who who's a high-functioning autistic or highly functioning ADD, and then somebody with like severe schizophrenia and depression. Like there's a difference, and have like one or two people be the authority figure on that draws very dangerous conclusions. I'm saying it's time we stop trying to find a solution to the problem while completely overlooking the tragedy itself. I think we should, when it comes to the news and the stories about this, they should be reporting on what they know and nothing else. Because up until that point, anyone else going out claiming that this was a racial thing, you are inciting anger. You are inciting anger in people who follow you, and then they're now going to be on the offensive and looking for blood. You shouldn't be out there making false names if you don't know. That will incite panic. These are all unintentional calls to action. But yeah, that's how I think with all this. And I think it's time we should start respecting lives lost before we start getting the torches and pitchforks and hitting the streets. I think there's a way to do this without being so hardcore activist about this. I think there's a way to go about it while actually being respectful. Because going into the streets and breaking windows and vandalizing and setting fire on cars doesn't exactly make your point seem valid. Going on Facebook or Twitter and calling people morons simply because you don't agree with them, maybe there's a lesson you can learn from each other if we have different viewpoints. I talk with people who will never own a gun in their life, and I honestly I don't think they should. I've had people who've owned guns their whole life talk to people who've never held a gun in their life, and those people who had gotten the chance to go to a range learn firsthand just it's not as simple as just walking into a gun show. It's not that simple. It's not like they have one every single weekend, and it's not like you could just grab one and leave. Because there is a registry you have to follow. There are laws you have to follow. The person before you has to be able to pass a background check. If it's some guy illegally selling weapons and he's there, guess who done goofed? But anyway, I'm really getting into it. Clearly, if you can tell, I am pro Second Amendment, and I want justice. When it comes to events like these, I would love the presence of security. Okay? When it comes to people going on social media, posting pictures of rifles and weapons and making very cryptic messaging, I feel that people should be reporting them to the police, and the police should show up, put it on their report that this person is a threat, a risk, and therefore on the FBI database, so that anytime these people try to go and buy a gun legally, they automatically get denied. It would literally take a whopping 1 hour to do all this, but that person will not be able to be a threat unless they manage to go out of their way and buy a gun illegally, in which that way I say, let's end the revolving door of criminals coming in and out of prison, and let's actually, let the police do their jobs when it comes to that. Let the legal system do its work. But anyway, if at any point you were listening and you disagreed, that's fine. I'm respectful. I understand other people's position on it. I'm just saying that it feels like we're losing so much of our humanity for the sake of being able to stand on top of tombstones and caskets in order to then prove how dedicated we are to the case. Because that's the only way our voices can be heard, is when we're firmly standing above the rest of the crowd and screaming into a bullhorn. But in order for that to happen, it feels like a tragedy needs to occur first. And I'm sorry, I'm not for that. So that's going to be it for me. And I'm just hoping from here on out that at the very least, something positive can come. Something. Some kind of positivity. Something. Because I can tell you right now, people going to the streets claiming for more gun control, it ain't going to happen. The gun nuts who are out there gripping their AR-15s or their other 223s, claiming over my dead body, you can lighten up the reins a little bit. I feel like there needs to be some common ground. That's all.